Number 2, we do not lay ourselves out in the work of the Lord as seriously, unreservedly, and laboriously as men of our profession and activity should. I bless the Lord there are so many who do this work with all their might, but alas, how imperfectly and negligently most do their work, even those we take for godly ministers. How few of us behave ourselves in our office as men who are wholly devoted to it should, as men who have consecrated all they have to that end. And because you will see my grounds for this confession, I will mention some instances of our sinful negligence. In the first place, if we were duly devoted to our work, we would not be so negligent in our studies. Few men take the pains necessary to rightly inform their understanding and to equip them for further work. Some men have no delight in their studies, but take only an hour now and then, as if it were an unwelcome task which they are forced to undergo, and they are glad when they are from under the yoke. Will neither the natural desire for knowledge nor the spiritual desire to know God and things divine, nor the consciousness of our great ignorance and weakness, nor the sense of the weight of our ministerial work, will none of all these things keep us closer to our studies, and make us more laborious in seeking after truth? Oh, what an abundance of things there are that a minister should understand, and what a great defect it is to be ignorant of them. And how much will we miss such knowledge in our work? Many ministers study only to compose their sermons and little more, when there are so many books to be read and so many matters that we should not be unacquainted with. Nor we are too negligent in the study of our sermons, gathering only a few naked truths and not considering the most forcible expressions by which may drive them to men's consciences and hearts. We must study how to convince and get inside our people, and how to bring each truth alive and not leave all this to hasty preparation, unless in cases of absolute necessity. Certainly, brothers, experience will teach you that men are not made learned or wise without hard study and unwearied labor and experience. Number 2, if we will heartily be devoted to our work, it would be done more vigorously and more seriously than it is by most of us. How few ministers preach with all their might or speak about everlasting joys and everlasting torments in such a way as to make men believe they are passionate about it. It should make a man's heart ache to see a group of dead and drowsy sinners sitting under a minister, not hearing a word that is likely to enliven or awaken them. Alas, we speak so drowsily and so softly that sleepy sinners cannot hear our words. The blow falls so lightly that hard-hearted sinners cannot feel it. Most ministers will not strain their voice, stirring themselves up to speak passionately, and if they do speak loud and earnestly, few accompany it with weighty and passionate subject matter. And yet without this, the voice does little good. The people will consider it mere wailing if the content does not match the voice. It should grieve one to the heart to hear what excellent doctrine some ministers have in hand, and yet they let it die in their hands for lack of a familiar and lively application. What appropriate matter they have to convince sinners, and yet how little they make of it. And what good they might do if they would only drive it home, yet they cannot or will not do it. Oh, sirs, how plainly, how familiarly, how passionately we should deliver a message of such import as ours, when the everlasting life or death of our fellow men is involved. I think we lack nothing more than we lack this seriousness. Nothing is more unsuitable to such a business than to be delicate and dull. What? Speak coldly for God and for men's salvation. Can we really believe that our people must be converted or condemned? And yet we speak to them in a drowsy tone. In the name of God, brothers, labor to awaken your own hearts before you go to the pulpit, so that you may be fit to awaken the hearts of sinners. Remember, they must be awakened or damned. A sleepy preacher will hardly awaken drowsy sinners. If your words give the highest praises to the holy things of God, and yet you say them coldly, then your manner will seem to unsay the matter. It is a kind of contempt to speak of great things, especially these great things, without much affection and fervency. The manner as well as the words must deliver them. If we are commanded, whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, then certainly preaching for men's salvation should be done with all our might. But alas, how few there are of such men. It is only here and there, even among good ministers, that we find one who has an earnest, persuasive, and powerful way of speaking, so that the people can feel and preach when they hear him. I'm not urging you to have a constant loudness in your delivery that will make your fervency scorned. You see to it that you have a constant seriousness, and when the manner requires it, as it should, in the application at least, and lift up your voice and do not spare your spirits. Speak to your people as you would to men who must be awakened either here or in hell. Look around at them with an eye of faith and with compassion, and think about which state of joy or torment they must be in forever. And then I think it will make you earnest, and it will melt your heart to a sense of their condition. Oh, do not speak one cold or careless word about so great a business as heaven or hell. Whatever you do, let the people see that you are in good earnest. Truly, brothers, these are great works which you have to do, and you must not think that trifling will somehow fulfill them. You cannot break men's hearts by jesting with them, or telling them a smooth tale, or pronouncing a gaudy oration. Men will not throw away their dearest pleasures at the drowsy request of someone who does not seem to mean what he says, or to care much whether his request is granted or not. If you say that the work is God's, and he may do it by the weakest means, I answer, it is true he may do so. Yet his ordinary way is to work by means, and to make not only the matter, but also the manner of preaching instrumental to the work. With most of our listeners, the very pronunciation and tone of speech is a great point. The best manner will scarcely move them unless it is movingly delivered. See especially that there is no affectation, but that you speak as familiarly to them as if you were talking to any of them personally. The lack of a familiar tone and expression is a great fault in most of our deliveries, and we should be very careful to amend it. When a man has a reading or reciting tone, like a schoolboy saying his lesson, or repeating an oration, few are moved by anything he says. Let us therefore rouse ourselves up to the work of the Lord, and speak to our people as if it was for their very lives, and save them by force, pulling them out of the fire. Satan will not be charmed out of his possession. We must lay siege to the souls of sinners, discover where his garrison is located, find out where his chief strength lies, and then lay the battery of God's ordinances against it, and work at it, close quarters, until a breach is made, and then do not allow them by their evasions to repair it again. Because we have reasonable creatures to deal with, and because they abuse their reason against the truth, we must see that all our sermons are convincing, and that we make the light of Scripture and reason shine so bright in the faces of the ungodly that it may even force them to see, unless they willfully shut their eyes. A sermon full of mere words, if it lacks the light of evidence and the life of zeal, however neatly it might be composed, is only an image of a well-dressed carcass. In preaching, there is a communion of souls and a communication of something from our souls to theirs. Just as we and they have understanding and will and affection, so the bent of our endeavors must be to communicate the fullest light of evidence from our understanding to theirs, and to warm their hearts by kindling in them a holy affection by communicated from our own. The great things which we have to command to our hearers have reason enough on their side, and lie plainly before them in the Word of God. We should therefore be furnished with all kinds of evidence, so that we can come like a torrent upon their understanding, and so that with our reasoning and persuasion we may pour shame on all their vain objections, knocking them all down before us, so that their souls may be forced to yield to the power of truth. Number 3. If we are heartily devoted to the work of God, then why do we not pity the poor, unprovided congregations around us, and take care to help them to find able ministers? And in the meantime, why do we not go out now and then to their assistance when the business of our particular charge allows it? A sermon given in the more ignorant places, done purposely for the work of conversion, delivered by the most lively, powerful preachers, might be a great help where constant means are lacking. Number 3, another sad evidence that we have not devoted ourselves and all we have to the service of God as we ought to have done, is our prevailing regard to our worldly interests. In opposition to the interests in the work of Christ, I will manifest this with 3 instances. Number 1, the temporizing of ministers. I do not want anyone to be conscious with those who govern them, nor to disobey any of their lawful commands. But it is not the least accusation against ministers that most of them for worldly advantage accommodate the party which will most likely promote their ends. If they look for secular advantages, they accommodate secular power. If they look for applause, they accommodate the church party that is most in favor. Alas, this malady is epidemic. In Constantine's days, the Orthodox were prevalent. In Constantius's days, almost all of them became Arians. There were very few bishops who did not apostatize or betray the truth, including the very men who had been at the Council of Nicaea. Indeed, when not only Liberius but great Osius himself fell, the man who had been the president in so many Orthodox councils, what more could be expected of weaker men? Were it not for secular advantage, how would it come to pass that ministers in all countries of the world, or nearly all, of which religion is most in favor, and most consistent with their worldly interests? Among the Greeks, they are all of the Greeks' profession. Among the Papists, they are almost all Papists. In Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, they are almost all Lutherans. And so it is in other countries. It would be strange that they were all in the right in one country and all in the wrong in another. If carnal advantages did not hold much sway with men, as they engaged in the search for truth, the variety of intellect and innumerable other circumstances would unavoidably cause a great variety of opinions on various points if it did not. But if the prince and the stream of men who are in power were on one way, most ministers will agree with them to a hair, without going out of their way to search for the truth. Look how common ministers generally change their religion with the change in the prince at various times in this land. Indeed, not all of them did, as our martyrology can attest, yet most did. And that same subservient weakness still follows us. It causes our enemies to say that reputation and preference are all our religion and reward. Number 2, we mind worldly things too much, and shrink from any duties that will injure or hinder our temporal interest. How common it is for ministers to drown themselves in worldly business. Too many are just what the sectarians want us to be, who tell us that we should go to the plow and labor for our living and preach without so much study. This is a lesson which is easily learned. Men are not anxious to cast off supporting themselves so that their own souls and the church may have all their care, and especially how common it is to neglect any duties that are likely to diminish our own estates. Are there not many, for example, who dare not and will not exercise discipline in their churches because it may keep the people from paying them their dues? They will not offend sinners with discipline lest the sinners offend them in their own estates. I find money is too strong an argument for some men to rebut, who yet proclaim that the love of money is the root of all evil, and who still make long orations about the danger of covetousness. I will say no more to them at present except this: if money was so deadly a sin in Simon Magus, who offered to buy the gift of God with money, then what kind of sin is it to sell God's gift, his cause, and the souls of men for money? And what reason do we have to fear lest our money perish with us?